pound key to end recording.
Yes, just wanted to say hello, and I'm on. I'm just trying to think what else I should know. uh, Let me know. Is everyone on? I hope. Let me know.
Good morning, Tony. Yes, we're on.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
I'm
just-
on. Sorry about that. I've just had important business getting my vehicle fixed. I apologize. Speaking to the mechanic.
Oh, madam.
Okay, hi everyone. It is 10:09 on Thursday, May 1st, 2025. In the quarterly meeting of the Louisiana Disabilities Council will now come. I think okay, so the meeting now come into order, and but Neil, would you like to take roll? Mr. Mike Billings?
Backdrop for me. I have no picture or anything. If we can try something, that would be great.
I'm gonna start with Dr. Vecchio,
Here.
Mr. Bennett,
Here.
Mr. Billings, Ms. Bayham,
Here.
Mr. Blunsky,
Here.
Mr. Boynton, Ms. Atchery.
Yes.
Ms. Crane,
Here.
Ms. Gonzalez, Mr. Ennis, Ms. Hagan,
Here.
Ms. Hano,
Here.
Ms. Harmon,
Here.
Ms. Jordan,
Here.
Ms. Kelly Aduli,
Here.
Mr. Macaluso,
Here.
Dr. Met,
Here.
Ms. Nguyen,
I'm here.
Mr. Piontek. Okay. Yes.
Did you just say here for the roll call, Tony, or present?
It's okay. Thank you.
Mr. Rocca,
Here.
Mr. Smith? Here. Ms. Stewart? Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Ms. Washington? Ms. Webb? Here. Dr. Wilson? Mr. Williams? And Ms. Shu? Here. You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, everybody. At this time, we will have Miss Angela Harmon read our virtual protocols.
Thank you, Jill.
You're welcome.
Before we get started, I just want to remind you all of a few rules. For committee members and members of the public attending in person, please raise your hand and speak and wait to be recognized by the chair before speaking. To help the meeting run smoothly, please keep side conversation to a minimum and comments related to the topic we are discussing. For those committee members who are attending virtually, remember you must be on camera and have your first and last name showing to be counted toward our quorum. Please keep microphones muted unless called upon by the chair. Electronically raise your hands to request to speak and wait to be called on by the chair. For attendees, electronically raise your hands to request to speak. Once recognized by the chair, your microphone will be turned on. After speaking, the microphone will be returned to mute. Also, the Q&A is only to be used by those needing an ADA accommodation to participate in the meeting. Public comment will not be accepted via the Q&A and except for those individuals who requested the accommodations. As for order, committee members in person and in virtually will be allowed to speak first. Public members in person will then be called on, followed by public participating virtually who have their hands raised. Comments in the Q&A and chat will be addressed last. As with all hybrid meetings, it can be difficult to keep track of all those wanting to speak in person and virtually. Please be patient. All comments and questions from committee members and public may be limited to 3 minutes or less should we run into time constraints. So please keep that in mind. Also, comments about a person's character will not be allowed. Finally, members of the public will have the opportunity to provide public comment before each vote and during designated public comment periods. The chair may also use their discretion to determine if comments will be accepted outside of those times. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so our next item is we have a guest today and we are gonna have a presentation by our Lieutenant Governor, Mr. Billy Langesser. So you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me today. I wanted to just tell you some of the things I'm doing and why I'm so passionate about this. My job is tourism, but I have a love and passion. Many years ago, I volunteered for a therapeutic riding facility in LaPlace over 30 years ago and lifted a little girl out of a wheelchair and saw her life change. I went back the next week and it rained and they canceled class and that little girl did not want to get up that horse. And that day I made a promise if I could ever afford it, I would go to Covered Arena where they would never cancel class. Little did I know, 7 years later, I was able to sell my company. I bought 1,000 acres in Clackamas Parish and built a Covered Arena. With Katrina approaching, we took care of over 200 special needs children and adults at no cost to them and their family. They could ride horses 7 days a week. And I rode out Katrina to protect those horses and ended up getting angry because I never saw a politician help and ran for office. So don't get mad and run for office. I wasn't able, I tried to open that place up 3 times again and flooded 3 times and realized it was too far south. But I do support those around the state. But since I've been Lieutenant Governor, I look for ways to improve access at our state park. And Sharia Dooley, one of your members, had helped me raise money and put the first special needs place. That's actually my riding center down in Point Celeste. It's a lot younger then and a lot thinner. We put the first special needs playground in Fontainebleau State Park. We also purchased 11 of these track chairs that now allow people to get in this track chair and go into the woods and see the deer, go out on the beach and enjoy a lot of things that if you're not down to a wheelchair, you get to enjoy. And we're going to continue to buy more of these chairs. You reserve it 24 hours out. There's no cost. If you can work the remote, you can do it yourself, or someone can walk behind you and work it. But it's really making a difference in many. We get families every weekend booking these at all the state parks. We're also doing private-public partnership, and we are looking for people to build. That's our first special needs playground at Fontainebleau. We're going to be putting these. It allows you to take a wheelchair onto the merry-go-round. All kind of new things, and we want feedback. We're adding things. I think some covered pavilions were requested, and different things that will make them more accessible. We're also looking at, you got a legal opinion, to raise money to build a facility at the park where if you need a single mom needs someone to care for their child while they go up and do errands, we can have that manned with nurses. To add that capacity. Anything else? If we build 10 new cabins, 2 of the beds can have a special bed, not only accessible, all of our cabins will be accessible by wheelchair, but we want to add those special things that sometimes make it impossible for people to go on vacation, that they need like a special zipper bed and different things that will really help all the special needs community be more inviting. We also are putting more programs together at our museums, events that are hosted. We're reaching out to the communities where all of our museums are to see that we can put more facilities in those museums to allow for more activities in those museums. We're also, 2 years ago, I had legislation to take 3 of the bottom lottery tickets. We have 20 scratch-offs. When we passed the lottery, it was going to make education the best in the country. But we didn't read in the bill, it allowed the legislature to take the money that we raised in the lottery. Education never got any more money. So now we spend about $14 million a year trying to get you to buy lottery tickets because nobody walks in and says, I'm here to help education, help our teachers, give me 3 of those scratch-offs. Because education never got any better, never got more money. Well, what I want to do is take the 3 bottom selling scratch-offs, dedicate 1 to our special needs, 1 to veterans, and 1 to seniors. And I had a bill that Troy Carter put in that the chairman would not even let anyone speak at a committee 2 years ago. Karen Carter Peterson said, I'm not going to allow you to take money from education, which wasn't true. Those 3 scratch-offs, the bottom 3, bring in less than $1 million. I'm telling you, if we do this, we will be able to raise, I don't buy scratch-offs, but if we had 1 for special needs, I'd buy $10 every time I got gas. And to give you an idea, in Virginia, 1 year, special needs scratch-off brought in $86.1 million. Texas, for the veterans, $101 million. And Pennsylvania, 27% of lottery money goes to seniors. And those are just a few examples. It seems like those 3 groups get the less representation in the legislature and always get their funding cut. But if we let the public decide if they want to help, and this group would be a great group to decide how that money gets spent. They know firsthand, you know firsthand what is needed. I have a policy in my office where we never tell anyone no. Just this week, helping someone get a wheelchair covered that was denied by the insurance company, and another lady whose child was being mistreated in school. I've had to reach out to the school board. I take each one of those requests personally to handle them through my staff at my office. We surely need some help in getting some of the things that we don't get through the legislature. But I'm going to be back with that bill next year, and I'm starting to get early out how important it is. Everybody knows a special needs person, a veteran, or a senior, but I don't just want to pass it in the legislature. I want it to go to a vote of the people. Because if I'm going to advocate for it, I don't want the legislature ever to be able to take a penny of that money anything else. And that's what we messed up when we passed the lottery. It allows them to take money from education and fill it with the lottery money. And so, hopefully next year we can pass that bill, go to a vote of the people. And then that money will go into a pot that a board like this will decide how those funds, will be spent. And with that, thank you for giving me time today. Thank you for what you do. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have for me. And if you will, if I could give you my cell number, 504 657 9890. 504 657 9890. And please, if not today, any day, call me. If you got ideas or thoughts of things I could do differently. And then also I wanted to offer, I have an apartment at the Pentagon Barracks, a big room, and I host breakfasts for people that want to talk to legislators. They all live there. They'll come for the free breakfast before they go to the Capitol. I will host and pay for the breakfast if y'all want to have a meeting there. And so we can talk firsthand to the legislatures, how important our ask in the legislatures. We've had some big wins with early childhood education, with covering weight loss surgery for state employees by having them there and realizing the importance of some of the things we're asking for. So I'll be glad to do that as well. And with that, I'll shut up and answer any questions if we have time.
Okay, thank you for attending. Does anybody in person have any questions?
I have a comment. So it's not a question, but
Leo?
I'm with the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs. We are doing a disability day on the 2nd. So I'm gonna get with you and your staff and we'll loop in because we wanna work with your office as well. As part of that, so we'll make sure to.
And if I can host everyone that's coming there to feed you at the apartment, before, during, and after, I'm willing to do that.
So the date is June 2nd. I'll get with Bailey after this.
Okay.
And get permission on it. So yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. Any other questions?
Well, thank you for having me and call me anytime I can be of help with anything. And I do appreciate everything y'all do. Thank you.
You again, okay. So now we will work into, at this time, we will have Mr. William Noel read our mission as well as our ground rules.
Thank you. Okay, Louisiana Developmental Disability Council mission statement. To increase independence, self-determination, productivity, integration, and inclusion for Louisianans with developmental disabilities by engaging in advocacy, capacity building, and systems change.
Yes, sir.
Louisiana Developmental Disability Council's ground rules. Members must be recognized by the chair before speaking, be respectful of each other's opinions, break for 10 minutes every 1.5 hours, discuss council business in a respectful manner, expect as necessary, restrict the use of electronic communication, i.e. texting, during council and committee meetings, silence or turn off all cell phones. Mission statement is posted at every meeting. Be on time for meetings. No alphabets. And lastly, side conversations are kept to a minimum, done quietly, and restricted to the subject at hand.
Okay, thank you, Leo. Okay, the next item of business is the approval of the meeting summary, a draft of January 30th meeting summary was in the packet. Sorry, I'm with rogue. the summary will not be read unless requested by a member. Are there any questions or corrections? Hearing none, if there is no objection, the meeting summary is approved as distributed. Hearing none, the meeting summary is approved. Alright, the next business is the chair's report. The only thing I have, which is the next agenda item, is the executive committee report, which I've already, when I find. Okay, sorry, y'all. Okay, so the executive committee met yesterday, April 30th, 2025, sorry. And we do not have any recommendations for the council to consider. We discussed some updates on several issues that arose during the last quarter. There was a 504 law that 17 states 17 states filed against. Okay, there was a lawsuit. And then we discussed the restructure of ACL, which is one of our funding sources. The administration for community living, and then our proposed draft budget for FY26, including possible changes to our funding, and there were more. Also, there are possible Medicaid changes at the federal level. And then Ebony will go into more detail on this later in her executive director's report. But all council members are of course encouraged to participate in all upcoming advocacy opportunities. And then we have a share your story with the council by taking a survey included in the news, the LADDC news sent Monday, April 28th, which was Monday. So then lastly, we did our final quarterly evaluation of our executive director first year of employment. The council participated in providing feedback for the evaluation And as always, the feedback was great. Received was very positive. What a great job our executive director is the council staff are doing. Oh, we also the executive committee and, oh, I'm sorry. The executive committee, the in Ebony came to a mutual agreement that due to the current uncertainty of federal funding to the council, a recommendation of executive a salary across, a salary increase will not be considered at this time. The next evaluation will occur in correlation to our January 5th. No, sorry. January 26th, meeting according to the council bylaw. Okay, so that is the executive committee questions. Committee report questions. Any council members in person have any questions? Any hand raised? Eric?
So the executive committee, didn't do any budget raise or nothing like that, that's when.
Well,
I can take
Okay.
issue. So Eric, due to the uncertainty of y'all's federal funding currently, and I'll get into more details whenever I present on the budget. The executive committee and I agreed that since we don't know what's gonna happen with y'all's federal funding, that we're not gonna consider a salary increase at this time. And I'm totally okay with that. I agree.
Okay.
all right, thank you, Eric and Benny. And, okay, so the next order of business is the election of our nominating committee, which according to our bylaws, Article 5, Section 4, the nominating committee shall be elected at the April meeting of the council at the April council meeting during the council election year, which I think would be on odd years because we have 2-year terms. Okay, so this is just for the nominating committee. So now I will open up the floors for nominations for the committee or for,
Yeah, for the nominating committee.
okay. Are there any nominations? I will open up the floor.
I want to be on the committee. I want a position.
I'm sorry, Vivian. Can you repeat that?
I don't want to be on the committee because I want a position.
Yes, and that is important to remember if you want to be on the executive committee, you should not or cannot be a part of the nominating committee. And can agency reps be on the nominating committee?
They're council members, so yes, the answer is yes.
Okay. So any volunteers?
And I'll just add that you can nominate yourself. If you're not interested in becoming an officer of the council or one of the chairs of our standing committees or member at large, you can nominate yourself to participate on the nominating committee.
I would like to nominate Tony on for the nominating committee.
Jill, it's Brooke on Zoom.
Yes, Brooke, you're recognized.
Can you explain what a what exactly what that means?
Okay, I'm so sorry. So in July, we will elect our new executive committee, which consists of the chair, the vice chair, chair of the two standing committees and a member at large. So according to our bylaws, in between April and July, our council elects maybe a nominating committee to offer the full council recommendations of the for the new executive board, and then of course as any committee, the council can take the recommendations or come up with our new recommendations, but the nominating committee will give their recommendations to the full council of who they want as the incoming executive committee. Does that answer your question, Brooke?
Jill, I am so sorry. I think I'm still a little confused. So
I can try to answer Brooke if that'll help. So, like she said, in July, the full council is going to vote for a new executive committee. That includes the two officers, the chair and the vice chair, and then the two chairs of the standing committees and our member at large. So the nominating committee is formed to offer the full council a slate of officers, a slate for the new executive committee. So the council in July can either vote to accept those nominations from the nominating committee, or you can, place nominations on the floor during the July meeting if you all do not agree with the recommendations that the nominating committee have, sent to the full council for consideration. Does that answer the question?
Yes, I would like to nominate Angela Harmon to be on that committee.
Are you interested in doing another seat on the executive committee? If you are, I wouldn't accept the
Right.
nomination.
I'm not sure about that. Thank you, Brooke, but I would have to decline at this moment. Thank you.
Jill, Vivian has her hand raised.
Okay, Vivian,
I would like to nominate Meredith Jordan to sit on the nominating committee. I accept. Cool.
I will like to nominate Tony.
Thank you.
Do you accept?
I was saying thank you.
So Tony, if you're interested in one of the officer positions or one of the positions on the executive committee, you shouldn't accept the nomination.
Yes.
So I think he's expressed interest, Jill, so I don't think he's gonna accept the nomination.
Sure.
He's expressed interest to me already.
The member at large seat, what do you have to do?
Yeah, you're not gonna be on the nomination. I can promise you that one of your kids was.
What did I do?
No.
What did I?
I was the member at large for a very long time, and it's just a position on everything. Can you explain what a member at large does?
And I just wanna make this, all of these descriptions are in your council bylaws and in your policies and procedures. So the binders that we gave you all at the retreat will have all of the information in there. But the member at large is basically responsible for representing the council's opinion on the executive committee. So if the executive committee is discussing something where they're gonna put a recommendation forward to the full council, it is the member at large's responsibility to take into consideration the full council's opinion about that issue and to vote the way the council would vote. And so that would be bringing the voice of the full council to the executive committee, if that makes sense, Eric.
Okay.
So you gotta do a lot of talking to your fellow council members, and just kind of get their opinion about things that the executive committee may discuss, like our advocacy agenda, and just important things like that. A lot of things come up and the executive committee has to meet on the fly, so you would have to represent the full council's opinion on the executive committee. So the member at large's position is sort of big. But I'm not discouraging you from going.
I understand.
The nominating committee don't watch.
Yeah, maybe she's saying she wants you on the
I got it.
Not to call you out, but Eden, you want a shot?
I'll pass, thank you.
Okay, Elena, any new members?
I'm fine to do it. I haven't gotten acquainted with everyone, so I'm not sure who to nominate. Oh,
Elena, and you, I can kind of address that. On the nominating committee, it's our job as staff to kind of give you background information on anybody that's interested in, running for one of the positions on the executive committee. So we'll give you background information. But yeah, I think the nominating committee does call,
Yeah.
that you can call and
Like
like,
an interview sort of process, not necessarily formal, but if these are the ones you're choosing from, you then call and get their background, talk to them, figure out what their goals are, how maybe they do align or don't align with the council's mission, things like that.
okay, I'll do it.
Okay, so I have,
How many do we need?
we need at least 5.
not 2.
I nominate Dr.
Dr. Meta.
Meta.
Joining crew.
Do you accept the nomination, Dr. Meta, or will you be stay in one of the positions?
Yeah, how often, we have to meet or
It would be one meeting.
one meeting?
For the nominating committee?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have a meeting, there'll likely be some work outside of that meeting for you to figure out the individuals that are applying or that are interested in a position. But likely one meeting that you would discuss and make your motion that's gonna go to the council in July.
All right, I'll do it.
Okay.
Brooke, I'm very interested in your thoughts. Can I nominate you or are you gonna set this one out?
Jill, did you say my name?
I had the whole conversation. Can I nominate you for this committee or would you like to sit this one out?
Yes, you can nominate me. I'll accept.
Okay, I nominate Brooke Stewart to the nomination committee.
And we only need one more, that's 4.
I would like to renominate Angela Harmon. I think she's had some time to think.
I accept. Thank you, Brooke. Thank you so much.
Y'all know Brooke don't play. Vivian,
I nominate Brian Bennett to sit on the nominating committee, if he's interested.
I'll sit on the meeting.
Cool, thanks.
okay, thank you.
6.
All right, so y'all, we made history. We have an acceptable amount of people on an ad hoc committee. It's huge. All right. Okay. So, hold on. Okay, y'all. So, does everyone want to set their nominations? Get us get that part. Okay. If there are no objections, the nominations for the council nominating committee is now closed or now good. The nominees for council nominating committee are Ms. Stewart, Ms. Jordan, Dr. Meta, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bennett, Angela, and Elena, am I missing anyone?
That's everything.
I think you members of the chair of the committee will be, and just pick someone.
Well, I can reach out to the actual committee and see if anyone's interested. I don't think we should just pick.
Do I? Does anyone?
Here, you can ask for.
Does anyone want to be the chair out of you six? And this is going great.
I can share. You be the chair, Elena? Okay, sure. Elena volunteers to be the chair. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the next item on. Okay, hearing none. The chair of the committee will be Elena Thatcher. Congratulations. Okay, so thank y'all. The next item of business is the executive director's report. So, the chair recognizes Ebony Hayden for her report.
Hi, good morning, everybody. If you look in your folders, my report is on the gray paper. And I kind of want to just highlight a couple of things on my report because I want to highlight some of the things that Jill brought out in the executive committee report that we discussed yesterday. So just to highlight a couple of things on my report, if anybody has any specific questions about any of the activities that we've done this past quarter, just ask. But your program performance report or your PPR for fiscal year 2024, and that spanned from October 23 to September 24, was submitted to the Office of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities by that March 28th, that deadline that they set for us. The council should receive feedback in summer 2025, but with all the changes at ACL, that may be pushed back. So we should receive feedback at some point. I'm thinking it should be around the summertime, but again, with things so in the air, we just don't know when we're gonna get feedback. Just to let you guys know about council membership, the council has filled all of their vacant seats for council membership, and we now are full at our 28 members. So again, I want to welcome. I know you're actually I want to again welcome our newest members, Jude Boyton, Dr. Meta, Frank Malcaluso, who's on virtually, and Miss Elena Satchery. So thank you guys for volunteering to be members. We're so excited to have you guys here. And lastly, on my report, in response to the third and final audit from the legislative auditor, specifically on seclusion and restraint and abuse and mistreatment of students with disabilities, the council staff worked with the ARC of Louisiana, Disability Rights Louisiana, and the Louisiana Department of Education on legislation to address that audit. And it resulted in House Bill 237, Representative Shane Mack. This item was added to the council and LaCan's advocacy agenda. We didn't discuss it at the roundtables because the final bill wasn't in the right posture. So I think we might have talked about it at the last two roundtables. So if you attended your roundtable and you didn't hear about it, that's the reason why. But it is tentatively gonna be heard next week in House Education, and
It's Wednesday.
It's confirmed.
it's confirmed, great, okay, so it's confirmed for Wednesday, May 7th. And at 9:30, and we'll probably be sending out an updated action alert for that one. No.
We had the information in the alert, so I'm not gonna confuse anyone by sending it out again. But the confirmed date was in the alert, it was just tentative, but our LaCan leaders have been making everyone aware that it is a confirmed date, the agenda is out.
So if you are interested in attending that Yellow Shirt Day, I encourage everybody to attend, just to show support for that particular bill. There may be some amendments, and we'll be watching that bill very closely to watch for those amendments. But I just kind of wanted to highlight those couple of things. Does anybody have any other questions before I go into the things that the executive committee sort of talked about yesterday? Okay, so I'm gonna kind of just give you guys some updates, just like I did at the executive committee on yesterday.
Yeah, I have a question, but I saw on the web the attack website and was curious about these leadership labs. What are they? What do they entail?
So the leadership labs that they're doing right now, it's just to help council leadership. So I've been sending that information to the executive committee, but when they have the next one, I think I'm gonna just send it out to every council member, because I think it's just good information about how to become leaders in your community, how to become leaders for the disability community in general, and I think that's information that all the council members can benefit from. So that's basically what those labs are.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
No. Continue.
Okay. So I just want to highlight some of the things, since the full council wasn't able to attend the executive committee on yesterday. Just to give you guys the highlights, I'm not going to go into as much detail as I did yesterday, but the Section 504 lawsuit, I kind of want to give you guys an update on that one. It's a court case that started in Texas. It was filed in September 2024. There are 17 states that have signed on to this lawsuit, including Louisiana. And when the lawsuit was originally filed, the 17 states were stating that Section 504 was unconstitutional. And they were asking the court to not only get rid of the updated rules that came out in 2024, but they wanted the courts to get rid of the entire thing. We know that there are things within Section 504 that we do not want to see go away, including in the updated rule, there are things about prohibiting discrimination in medical care. And I think we saw a lot of that even in Louisiana when the pandemic happened, where individuals in healthcare were deciding who would get ventilators, who wouldn't. And so we don't want to see that type of discrimination. But 504 is also very important for our students in our school systems. And we don't want to see any part of Section 504 go away. So we are continuing to advocate for Section 504. The update is that now they have filed the 17 states have filed a joint status report stating that they're no longer challenging that the entire Section 504 is unconstitutional, but they are still challenging those updated rules. And like I said, one of the updated rules was prohibiting discrimination in medical treatment. So I encourage you guys to continue to reach out to our Attorney General's office, Liz Merle, and make sure that your voices are heard, that how important Section 504 is for our disability community. Does anybody have any questions about that? I'm gonna talk about two more things.
All right, now,
Any questions?
okay.
Okay, The next thing I want to talk about is the restructuring of the administration for community living. So Bridget and Lauren gave you guys some updated handouts that show like how ACL was structured. And if you look at those gray boxes, on March 27th, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services released a statement, and they announced that they were going to be restructuring ACL and reorganizing it. And that's basically the reorganization. If you look at those gray boxes at the top and the bottom, all of those offices are now gone. We only have the offices that are in the middle. And so if you look on the right-hand side, the administration, on disabilities, we're housed under the administration of disabilities. So we actually turned our program performance report into the Office of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. So I know some of you guys are asking yourselves, like, why is ACL so important? Well, ACL was formed in 2012, and it was basically formed to increase efficiency and collaboration among programs that support older Americans and people with disabilities. And those two populations in our country have very similar needs for services and supports. And given that community-based services and supports are the hallmark of the administration for community living, we're just wondering how that restructure is going to work, especially if you are moving. What they told us was that they were planning to move these programs either under the Administration for Children and Families, the Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation, and or the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. Those particular departments had very different resources. They had very different priorities. And so the Administration for Community Living's priority was to make sure people don't have to live in institutions or nursing homes like what was brought up at the executive committee on yesterday. It's all about community living, making sure people can live in their communities. So that's why ACL is so important, and that's why this is very concerning. And we should all be concerned about the restructuring of ACL. Now, directly related to the restructuring of ACL is the leaked budget, but I'm going to get to that when I talk about the budget report. But the last thing I want to talk about that we discussed in the executive committee yesterday was the possible changes to federal Medicaid and how that's going to affect us. Now, on February 25th, the House of Representatives passed a budget resolution that proposes trillions of dollars in cuts to federal spending. It asks the committee that oversees Medicaid, the Energy and Commerce Committee, to cut up to $880 billion in the next 10 years. And so what I want to highlight is that this was a budget resolution that was passed. It wasn't a bill. And it's important to know that Medicaid isn't cut yet. However, I think a lot of people don't understand how Medicaid works in Louisiana. In Louisiana, Medicaid pays for our home and community-based services, our waivers, the now waiver, the row waiver, the supports waiver, the children's choice waiver, the community choices waiver for our elderly. Medicaid pays for their waivers. Medicaid also pays for EPSDT, personal care services, transportation, doctor's visits, therapies, and a lot more things that sometimes we don't realize that Medicaid pays for those things. So I just kind of want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. And unfortunately, our home and community-based services are considered optional. They're considered optional services, so they're usually the first to be cut. But if you live in the disability community, we know that the services aren't optional for our families. We need them. So just to kind of give you guys some examples of the changes that they are proposing to Medicaid or that will come out, they're considering cutting federal funding, which will be in the form of block grants, per capita caps, cutting our federal match dollars, our FMAP, and are restructuring provider taxes. All of these potential options will reduce the federal government's share of Medicaid costs. But they don't actually reduce the actual Medicaid spending. So any proposals will shift the burden to the states to come up with those funds, or they're gonna have to cut services. And I can tell you right now that our state budget is very uncertain. I think that the latest we've heard, even from Representative McFarland, who is the House Appropriations Chair, is that we're looking at a deficit of about $194 million in Louisiana. And so I don't understand how the state will be able to cover those cuts. And so I just kind of want to highlight that, because that's something that everyone should be aware of. And we have to advocate for our services. We have to advocate for Section 504. We have to advocate for these changes at the federal level to Medicaid. So does anybody have any questions? Because I'm gonna kind of go into the budget things or my budget report, but I kind of want to highlight those things, and I'm willing to answer any questions that I can, if you guys have any.
My question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Eric.
My question is, one, why is they always attacking all programs, the programs that give us freedom to live and to be successful in the public, and why do they want to attack this? Number one question to me, why is we so broke? Why? Why? That's all I ask. Why?
So I can attempt to answer the first question, Eric, but I'm not gonna have an answer for that second question. Like I said, the services that support our elderly and disability populations, they're considered optional services. So whenever they're looking at cut, that's the first place they go.
We're not optioning people. We're not people that just pick out a pot and say, okay. This is our lives.
Right.
So why they saying that it's optional? And we live every day. Why? I don't understand. It's not understandable in my head. Why is they cutting Medicaid? Why is they cutting the school system? Why is they picking on the things we need? I can't understand it. I don't understand that, bro. Just say why. You take these things from us, we can't live.
So Eric, I think that's a great point. I think that your voice and making sure that our legislators, our congressional delegation in Washington, they need to hear those testimonies. And that's why we've been asking you all to share your stories. To go, we sent out a LADDC News on Monday, and we're asking people to share stories like that, because these services aren't optional for our families. We know that. But a lot of times when you are higher up, you don't see the people, you just see dollar signs sometimes.
But my question is, if you take transportation, how can we move around? If you take Medicaid, how can we do what we need to do? Our bodies, our health, we need it. So if you take the transportation, how can we go to Yellow Shirt? How can we do the things we need to do? Because it makes me feel like you're trying to make us be quiet when you take these things. Why?
I can't clap because I have to see you, but I can't. I love you.
But that's what I'm saying. Why? We live this every day. we depend on this. So we got to get up in the morning and say, okay, where's we going today?
Oh, eating.
So I have a question. They say that they're trying to cut community-based services. So does that mean the whole waiver as well?
Well, I would just say it like this, if they cut Medicaid, that could trickle down to the waivers, because the services are optional. So if they are leaving it up to the states to cover what they cut, I don't see how Louisiana will be able to come up with the funding to cover the match. So then they put the burden on the states to figure out what services they're gonna cut. And I'll just say that these services are optional. Most of the time, these are on the chopping block. And so I don't know, Julie or Brian, if you guys want to sort of help with that answer.
So in speaking to whether that they're optional services, I know we say this all the time, but advocacy and voices, I think, are very important to that. And this is just my take on it. I think the Medicaid program as a whole on the national level it needs some updating. When we talk about mandatory and optional services, I think those have kind of been in place for a very long time. If you look back 30 years ago, home and community-based services weren't as common. There weren't as many programs then as there is now. I mean, HCBS across the country, those are hallmarks almost in every state's Medicaid programs. So I think that there is some catching up to do there for updating. And that's why I say advocacy, contacting elected officials to kind of drive home that point that these don't need to be optional services. They should be a mandatory benefit in states' programs. I think that, and if they were, it would make them less susceptible to cuts when we were looking, or when we were faced with having to make cuts. But just the way that the program is defined right now on a federal level, the home and community-based services are largely considered still optional.
Why is it up to bigger federal people to make decisions for us? We live this life. They don't have to wake up wondering if somebody's gonna come get them out of bed. Or even if we're gonna eat. Get something to drink. Be able to go to the bathroom. That's just, to me, people that don't live what we live, don't even know our names, don't even know what we go through. They shouldn't be making decisions on something they don't even know anything about.
Emily, can Meredith, can I hand this over to Meredith while I go? Meredith, yes, ma'am.
Amen. Did you have anything?
No. Thank you.
Vivian and then Eric, and I'm Vivian. Thank you. So they're thinking about it from an equality standpoint, not an equity standpoint. It's not services that are necessary for them, but they're incredibly necessary for us. So when you email them or stand in front of them in committee, tell them everything, tell them, is this optional for me? No, it's not. If they're really looking at it through dollar signs, then tell them it'll boost the economy because then you have access to work, you can be a tax-paying citizen, all of that, but don't stay silent. If you stay silent, then we have no chance.
Medicaid been updating for the last 30, 60, 40 years. We ain't got up yet. Why? They can cut, but they ain't caught up. We need it. I get in front of a stage, I get anywhere they need me to speak and speak. We need it. We not option. We can't be in this room. Yeah, I don't answer texts, I get lost. But when they gonna get caught up? This young man can only do so much. Why? That's all I can say. I gotta walk out.
So, how does a program go from optional to implemented? That's a good question. I don't know if that's outlined in federal law. I'm not positive on that, but I think there would have to be laws passed on a federal level to change that.
They've actually proposed it before for home and community-based services at a federal level. It would take a congressional action. But part of the problem is the fiscal impact tied to it is what is killing it every time. So I think that there is support for it largely from a lot of the legislators. But in order to make it mandatory means everybody who asks for it gets it. And I'm not saying I don't agree that should happen. I'm just saying that then has a lot of dollars associated with being able to make that happen. And that's why from what I've seen in the last 5 or 6 years anyway, that I've really paid attention to it, it ends up failing to get the necessary votes to change it from optional to mandatory. Some states are actually concerned too, that if they were to make it mandatory, which means anybody who needs it or has a plan for it gets it, that then ultimately, if there's not additional dollars associated with that, then things like, our ability to have people in the Now waiver who get supports 24 hours a day from one staff, that those services would have to be reduced. In order to give everybody something, that means that everybody who gets something has to get less than what they get, as opposed to maybe what they need to be able to be successful. So there's a lot of factors around it, but it would take congressional actions, and it's called mandatory, to go from an optional Medicaid service to a mandatory Medicaid service.
I was just gonna say, this conversation is the perfect example of why advocacy is so important. One of the questions I think you asked, Amy, is like, why are these people who aren't living with a disability making these decisions? And it's because we need people with disabilities that run for office. We need people with disabilities that go work for OCDD, work for ACL, work for these groups. And that, we have to encourage that. I mean, we're always encouraging, we send out information when we have it about whatever boards and commissions we hear of that are looking for people to have a seat at the table. There are tons of advocacy organizations out there, lots of nonprofits that have boards that you can apply to sit on. It's very important to look for those, and also understand that it's your voice and you have the ability to advocate at any point in time. No one has to tell you when to advocate. No one has to tell you what the issue is you advocate for. You don't have to wait for an alert from any group to send you to say, hey, you need to do this. It's all about sort of that self-awareness. You know what you need, you know what your friends need, and whoever is gonna listen, and they'll listen when you get loud enough. You have enough to say, when enough people are reaching out to them about these things. And I think this discussion just highlights why it's so important to keep advocating. Because unfortunately, sometimes we see people that get discouraged and they stop advocating. We have a lot of people in Lacan that we still have their information, but they don't really do much anymore. Either they got what they needed, or they're seeing that they're not getting what they need, and so they stop, and that's the worst thing. If you have what you need, there's lots of people that still don't, and your story still matters to get them what they need. And if you haven't got what you need, you definitely don't want to stop, right? And I think unfortunately, when it comes to disability services, I don't know if you're ever gonna have what you need in the distant future that I can think of. So that's why it's important to constantly be talking about it, constantly having these conversations, and really getting out there and just talking to whoever's gonna listen. There doesn't have to be a bill about it. There doesn't have to be a notice of intent or some kind of rule that's being published. At any point in time, you can reach out to the people. A lot of folks that work for the state, their information is readily available. Their emails are available. It tells you who's in that position. You can call, try to speak to them, talking about what it is you need, regardless of if it's a topic of discussion right now, because I promise it will be at some point in time. So that's just what I want to chime in with.
And just very briefly, just from an advocacy standpoint, I think that everyone in this room is asking the right questions, but you're asking the wrong people. Because everyone in this room understands what you're going for, and to Brady's point, we at the governor's office, we get calls, and we're happy to facilitate with legislators if we can. So just let us know. Hey, you want to talk to your legislator, I can look that information up for you and find that for you. And so reach out to us, use this as a resource. But again, you don't have, like you said, you don't have to wait for anything to do it. This is something that's these conversations need to happen. But what I would recommend would be to reach out to your state legislators, your local legislators as well, because a lot of times in my experience with them, they want to help, they just don't know how to, right? So the biggest thing that you can do is to help them to understand what it is that you go through. And then from there, they can impact change, certainly run for office, absolutely, but in the interim, use your voice to talk to legislators directly. And that's, because from the conversation that I have with legislators, they're always happy to help where they can. They just don't necessarily know, what our needs are and how we can help, how they can help. So they're relying on your experience as much as you're relying on them, if that makes sense. It's very symbiotic. So definitely something that you want to consider moving forward, in session, out of session, it doesn't matter. They're there to help. So just keep that in mind.
Okay, Vivian or was Karen?
Vivian was, I heard.
Vivian.
First, remember?
Okay,
I'm sorry, what was your? Already spoke, remember? Oh, you just thought it, okay, never mind. I thought, sorry, you can't go back up.
Karen.
I just have one more question about the institutional care. The Medicaid card will affect that services. June, can you, or Brian, can you help me answer that question?
What did you
ask? If the Medicaid cuts, the potential cuts to federal Medicaid, will that affect the intermediate care facilities as well?
We just don't know yet. And I'll give you an example. One of the cuts that they're proposing on the federal level would likely or potentially not affect services at all. Because it would be a cut on the administrative side. So for example, CMS gives states enhanced federal match funding for different things like citizens. So that's a potential cut that they're looking at, which would mean we might lose our funding to develop a new system that would support Medicaid, but it wouldn't directly impact what we call, our provider payment for our services. So until we know, what's gonna happen at the federal level, what they're gonna specifically look to the, market, I guess, we don't know what services or programs will be in back.
Can I clarify about that, is that the intermediate care facilities, like the Homey community-based waivers are considered optional, sort of. There's a little bit difference that, in the ICFs, in that if you have them in your state, you have to be able to try to find a location for them. So, but they are also in that optional category. And then the current way that you match and the percentage of the federal match is the same for waivers and for ICFs and nursing home and lots of others. So there's the administrative match Brian was talking about, and then sort of a regular match, and that match rate is the same for all of those different services. So it's not different for each kind of service.
Coming on Meredith.
Yeah, I was just gonna add to piggyback off of what Britton was saying and Liam as well. And I really commend the council too for having Lieutenant Nungesser come here today, right? And I keep thinking about the number that he shared and talking about the breakfast. And I know you guys will stay connected with that and sort of communicate when that opportunity happens. I didn't know that happened, and I think that would be a great opportunity too. You know, for some of these concerns, if they're willing to bring all of those legislators together, right? And create that perfect environment for members to share needs and wants and wishes. And these are all the things that we would like to see improved. I keep thinking about his address and all the work that he's doing as well. So just wanted to kind of piggyback on that. What I was thinking as y'all were talking.
Okay. Okay, Aiden.
I have a question for you, Mr. Bennett, if you could possibly answer it. My question is, the waiting list has been the same since I've been alive. And that's 32 years. So why is it that they continue to add people and add people and add people if there's no funding to keep adding people to help the ones that are waiting?
Which program is it?
The now, well, the row, also the row as well.
Sure, so we worked with the Development Facilities Council, and in 2018, we did change our system based on working with advocates so that it wasn't just waiting and waiting, but that there was a prioritization so that people could have access to a waiver based on their priority of need. And we've been able to continue making those waiver offers for people. And part of the reason we did that is because there were, when people were waiting and they would get a waiver offer, they didn't always need anything. We had a lot of people who got the offer, but then weren't getting any services. And so that's why we shifted to that prioritization. And so now people do get a waiver, and then they work through to identify what waiver can meet their needs. So there's not really a waiting list for the row or the now or the children's choice, but it's based on the need the person has.
Yeah.
Sheree has her hand raised.
Okay. Can I make one announcement?
You're the chair.
no one nominated me for chair. Which is good. So according to the ground rules, it says work every 1.5 hours, which it is, but it's 11:30 and lunch is at noon. So it's the will of the council. Y'all want to roll through lunch or y'all want a break? All right, we'll do that. Thanks.
Sure.
Sherry?
Ebony, do you think June 2nd is too late for our lunch or breakfast at Lieutenant Governor Nungesser's apartment? Would you like to set up something before then? Like, is that too late in session to make a difference?
I don't know, and again, I'm not Ebony, but we do have the disability day that's the same day. And then I believe that the Arc of Louisiana is also having a disability day on the 2nd as well. So like the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs and the Split Second Foundation, they're having a day, and then the Arc of Louisiana is having a separate day on also the 2nd. So I mean, it might be a little crowded to do it on the 2nd, but I don't think it's, but again, I'll let you answer.
I mean, to me, the earlier the better, Sheree. I think that the sooner we can talk to legislators about what's going on federally and how that could potentially affect these optional services, the better. So if there's a date that you could get us in sooner, I would say the sooner the better.
I mean, can everybody show up? Is, like, that's the question. Can everybody make it there?
Yeah, and so we have a 28-member council. It's
Oh, it's big
really
enough. Yeah,
hard,
it can hold everybody, but it's everybody's availability. So maybe if you send out, like, these are our 3 dates, we take the dates.
Yeah, we get told, and then the majority, like who could come on what day, we would pick that day. So if he could give us 3 dates, are you looking for us to give those dates?
Why don't you give me the dates and I'll ask him. And I mean, we can do dinner too, because they're out there, not only at breakfast, they're out there at dinner, so the afternoon works better for people versus, the morning, right?
So I can get some dates together and then some different times and poll the council, the full council. And let you know which date works best for everyone.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Sorry, we have a.
yeah, missing in Tony's hand?
Yes.
Okay, Tony, you're up, Tony.
Thank you. I know how this gentleman feels. To all of you, even all the adults and our staff. I know what it's like. We're just a parish where we are, where I live. So I can understand all the lows and highs of everything. And it was a God-given blessing for me. This house that I live in now was from my dad's parents, my grandparents. That was a blessing. But for me to hear that from him, right now we're still in the slump of seeing all kinds of homes empty, not taken yet, within the system, of course. It may take a while, but the reality and the hopefulness and the faithfulness, hopefully that will come. But I can definitely see how frustrating it might be, because when it's big cities like Lafayette, oh, right away, they can find something. Get with that whatever person, him or her, or that realtor. But it's quite different in our parish, where I am. And I know Mr. Nungesser here very honorable, I may say. We need more work and need more compassion and more comfort to come together more to make our society better and not looking backwards, but looking forwards. I hope this will be something that you can, or we all can, put into play, put into action, and hopefully we can do something much more better than this. Because we want to improve. We don't want to look backwards, but we want to look forward to a new year. No matter if it's the ARC system or living on your own completely with family help.
Hi, there is one thing I'm curious about. My brother cannot get his waiver turned on because Medicaid keeps turning it off and has been turning, like, my brother has not been able to have Medicaid for years now, and he desperately needs it. He has dyslexia, and lately, for the past 4 years, he's had a limp that just gets worse. How would I go about, like, how do we try to get his Medicaid turned back on? Because he needs it and he should have waiver, but he can't access his waiver because Medicaid keeps turning off.
Vivian, do you know it's a problem with the application or that part of it?
What do you mean?
So it's with the actual Medicaid eligibility piece?
He's eligible. He has waiver, or he should, but it can't get activated because Medicaid keeps turning off, but he should have had Medicaid like all along. Me and my other brother have Medicaid and we have access to it, but he does not and he should. It's to the point to where he has 2 years of no medical history at all.
If you would reach out to me directly with his information, we'll look into it.
Cool, thanks.
Sure we'll look into it.
Thank you.
Okay. Tony, is your hand up from before?
No.
Okay, then you're recognized.
You're welcome.
I think it might be up from the board.
Okay, so, okay, y'all. Okay, thank y'all. Rebecca, is your hand up?
No, that was accidental.
Okay. Do we have, y'all, do we have any more questions? Okay, so, all right, okay, so before lunch, would you like the next item? Or were you done your executive report?
I'm done with the executive report.
Sorry, y'all. So, the next item for business is the budget report. So, the chair recognizes Ebony Higgins for the budget report.
Okay, again, if you guys have specific questions about the third quarter report, budget report, it's in your folders. If y'all have specific questions about anything included on that report, let me know, but I'm gonna kind of highlight some things that I talked about yesterday in the executive committee, specifically about budget changes to the council's budget. Yesterday, I kind of spoke about the leaked draft budget proposal for FY 26. There was a leaked budget, the councils were informed on April 16th. that a draft budget proposal from the Office of Management and Budget for fiscal year 26, which begins October 1st, 2025, was leaked, and that's basically the president's budget. The document that was leaked was about 68 pages, I think. And it proposed reorganizing or ending many of our disability and aging programs, including the State Council on Developmental Disabilities, that's the Louisiana DD Council, and all the councils across the country, our sister agencies, the protection and advocacy agencies around the country are just here in Louisiana, that's Disability Rights Louisiana, and then the University Centers of Excellence, and here in Louisiana, that's LSU Human Development Center. So that proposed budget basically zeroed out all of our funding, which means that they were eliminating those programs. So I do want to just say this. The president's budget does not determine which programs are going to be funded. Similar to how we do things here in our state, the governor put forth a budget and the legislature is responsible for funding what they feel is necessary. So it's the same thing on the federal level. Congress will decide what federal programs they're going to fund for in that final FY26 budget, which begins on October 1st. So we've seen this in a lot of years lately. More than likely, Congress will not have agreed. I'm saying that, and I'm hoping that, you know, there's a lot of discussion before they make an agreement. If they do not make an agreement by October 1st, what's going to happen, hopefully, is that they'll pass another continuing resolution. And so for FY25, that's what they did. They basically passed the continuing resolution to fund us at our level funding. And for those who aren't aware, our DD Council gets $1.38 million per year. So we got that funding for FY25. What we don't know is who we're going to get for FY26. If they do come up with a budget, finalize it, our advocacy is going to be very important. So what can we do? We can make sure that we're watching the president's budget as it's finalized and as it goes through the process through Congress. We are in constant communication with our national organization, the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities, or NACDD. They host meetings twice a month, and then sometimes they were hosting daily updates, but they kind of scaled back. But our priority is to make sure that we are up to date on all the information that NACDD is sharing. They've asked us for impact statements. They've asked us for our annual reports for FY24. They've also asked us for our contingency plans. And our impact statements are what's most important. So that's why we were asking for you guys to help us share stories about anyone that has been impacted by any activity or initiative that the council has put on. If they have participated and become a graduate from Partners in Policy Making, we need to know that information. Share your stories. If they participated in disability voting training last year, or the youth leadership forum, or the emergency preparedness training that we had, any initiative that you or anyone that you know has participated in and it's affected their lives, we want them to share their stories because it helps us to show the impact of the work of the Louisiana DD Council specifically. So we're asking you guys to make sure that you're talking to anyone you can. And when opportunities like the Lieutenant Governor comes and speaks to the council, we need to make sure that they're aware of the issues that we're facing right now. I really wish that the conversation that we just had would have been had with the Lieutenant Governor. So when you get these opportunities, like when you're in front of legislators, like Vivian just said, we need to just tell our stories. Make sure that you're telling your stories to anyone that'll listen, because even if it's a state legislator, it doesn't have to be our congressional delegation. Even if it's a state legislator, we need to make sure that our voices are heard. Because if they don't know our stories, if they don't know what we live through every day, if they don't know, then they don't know. But our job as advocates are to educate our legislators, especially our congressional delegation that's gonna be making these votes. Because once they're educated, if they still vote the other way, they can't say that they didn't know. Because we have educated them, we provided the information to them. And so we're asking you guys, if you're not signed up for our social media, please sign up. Because we're sharing a lot of things that our national organizations are sharing. And just to let you guys know, we are actively working as your council staff. We are in constant meetings. There have been a lot of collaborations with other disability organizations, not just on education bills, but collaboration on the 504 lawsuit, collaboration on the federal things that are going on with Medicaid. So please be on the lookout for any action alerts that we share, because what we can't afford to do is for people just to sit idly and not do anything, not have your voices be heard. We have to advocate. What we can't do, and I want to make sure that I say this publicly, we cannot lobby. So as council members, you cannot go into a legislator's office and say, I'm a DD council member, I'm asking you to help us get this funding appropriated for Medicaid. Or I'm asking for you to, as a council member, for you to give us the money for this. We can't do that. Now, as private citizens, as Aiden Blunsky, as Jill Hano, as Angela Harmon, as a private citizen, you can ask for whatever you want. But I just kind of want to make sure, we've been given that guidance from our technical assistants, that we want to make sure that we're not lobbying, but that we're advocating. We have to educate our legislators on how these changes will affect us. And so I'm just asking that we need all hands on deck. Every council member needs to participate. When we send out alerts, we are asking that you guys share it with your friends and family, that they get on the phone and call, because we cannot afford for anybody just to sit down and not do anything. Everybody has to advocate at this point, because I think we're just at a vital time in our country's history, where we just need all hands on deck. And I just wanted to let you guys know that as your council staff, we are working diligently to make sure that the people in Washington know what the impact that the Louisiana DD Council has had. And I'll just share that Julie has reached out. She's going to be in DC in a couple of weeks, and her national organization, she'll be sharing talking points about our specific DD Council. So Brenton and I will be working with her. But it's a lot of people, it's a lot of activity going on, and we just need the boots on the ground, our grassroots advocacy organization to activate and make sure that your voices are heard. So I'm off my soapbox now. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, the budget. If there are changes to the budget, there is a document included in y'all's packet that has the council's current initiatives for FY25 and then the proposed initiatives for FY26. If there are changes federally to your budget, again, we are working on contingency plans, and these are just projections. We don't know what's going to happen federally, but we as your council staff are going to make recommendations if there are reductions to your funding. One of the things that we're looking at right now is our lease is up in November. So we're looking at cheaper office space, so that cost can come down for the council. Again, we don't know what's gonna happen federally, but all we can do is advocate. So, if there are changes, those are things that you guys are gonna have to consider, looking at which initiatives we may want to reduce. And then as your council staff, we are definitely looking at ways that we can save money and reduce costs that may not actually be necessary. Our own little doge. So does anybody have any questions about the budget?
That was awesome. I don't have a budget question, but Jules, do you need a self-advocate to go to the DC?
So the state's not paying for it to go, somebody from NASD did, but I can ask, I can always ask. For them to pay for it.
But okay. All right, I see a yellow hand.
Yes.
But I can't.
So the first one is Frank. He is a council member, so we'll let him go first.
Okay. Magaluso? Okay, Mr. Magaluso, you're recognized.
We can't hear him. Can't hear him.
And we can't hear you.
Turn your microphone up, maybe.
No, you just muted.
It wasn't.
Better?
Yes.
Yes.
I have a question about the budget. If say the fiscal year 2026, God forbid we get these cuts actually, how is that going to impact, say, the Families Helping Family Centers? Because I just gave a speech on autism at my school. And I gave the Families Helping Family Centers as a resource they could use.
So Frank, currently McCann and the council are actively advocating for Families Helping Families to get that additional $500,000 that they've gotten for the last 4 years. Again, the state budget is very uncertain at this time. I think yesterday in the self-determination committee, Julie reported that the revenue estimating conference is going to be meeting sometime in May. And until they meet to discuss what changes the legislature made during the special session, and the fact that the amendment to that constitutional amendment did not pass, they're gonna have to do a lot of work to see what's what with the state's budget. So until they meet and we figure out where the state is, we don't know if the Families Helping Family Centers are gonna get that additional $500,000. Of course, we're gonna continue to advocate for it, but at this time, we just don't know.
Wanted to say thank you. Sorry about that.
No, thank you.
All right, Ms. Melinda, you have the floor.
Towards the beginning of Ebony's section this time, she said something about contingency plans. Can you tell me what that means?
Yeah, so Melinda, what they're asking us to do is similar to what LDH does whenever there could be potential budget cuts. So a lot of the councils across the country have projected like 25% budget cut or 50% budget cut or 75% budget cut. What that would mean for their councils and what actions their councils would need to take if those percentages were cut. So that's what we're working on currently. We're looking at our budget. I'm working with LDH budget to figure out, like, if there was a 25% reduction in our $1.38 million that we receive every year from the federal government, what would our operation look like? So that's what the contingency plans entails. Did that help answer that question?
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miss Melinda. Okay, thank you, Ebony. Do you have more?
No, I'm done unless anyone else has any questions.
Okay, no more hands up.
I just got out of it. So, I don't think so. No. There are no hands, no.
Okay, so at this point in our agenda, well, it is 12 o'clock, so, but no, in agendas, it's 12 o'clock, if there is no objection, we will break him some, I'm not good at this.
Doing great.
Okay. So if there's no objection, the council will meet for lunch. It is 11:58, so we will meet for lunch for an hour.
Unless you change it as the chair.
I didn't know I had authority. I'll be 2 minutes. No. Oh, so if there's no objection, it's basically noon, so did y'all wanna break for lunch for an hour and meet back here at 1 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, now, okay, now we are now adjourned for lunch.
Good job, Jeff. You're crushing it. You're crushing it, Jeff.